Matthew Moore's Wood Studio. Today is Monday, August 29th, which means it's time for another weekly shop update. So, what's been going on in the shop this week? Well, a bunch of stuff has been going on. These Cocobolo planes here. Not a lot yet with this walnut one. Just been, well, busy on these guys. I'll get over here later, but let's talk about these. So I've got 4 planes here, a jack, 2 smoothers, and what will be a block plane. And let me tell you, they are tuned up and taking incredibly thin shavings. So thin that my digital dial caliper is saying 1/2 of a thousandth of an inch, which to me means it really doesn't know how thick these are. So that's pretty cool. Now, the first thing I did once I got back from my trip was to get these guys glued up. But before I could glue them up, I had to figure out exactly where I wanted the plane bed and the front escape bed, whatever you want to call it, their positioning. So to do that, I had to figure out where the blade was going to touch just barely about a 1/16 of an inch into the actual front ramp here in the front of the planes. Now, as for the back of the plane bed, with that I needed to chamfer the edge just a little bit, because once you get these glued up, you're going to then go over to the jointer and joint these nice and square to the one of the reference edges, which will be your sides. Now, before all of that happens, you need to clamp everything up, drill out alignment holes, and peg those. I used 1/4 inch dowel stock for that, and that was because I also used a 1/4 inch brass rod as my cross pin for all of my planes here. Now, I had to cut that brass rod, of course, and I used a hacksaw to do that, and then over at the sander, I cleaned up the length of those brass rods to get them just a little bit less, maybe about a 1/16 of an inch less on each side than the total width of the plane bodies. Now, the reason for that is I wanted to put this nice little chamfer on the outside edge where the holes are to kind of just flow into my brass pin, and I think that looks fantastic. Now, with these guys, once you have those pins in for the placement, then you can work on, as I said, drilling out that brass pin, and you need that alignment to be pretty spot on for the wedge and how all of the action on the planes are going to be. But if you're off by a little bit, it's okay. The big thing here is you want enough thickness or distance between the blade and the cross pin and a correct amount of height so that the wedge itself can get in there, lock in, and hold down the blade. Now, once I had all that stuff figured out, it was time to glue these guys up. Now, regular wood glue is not going to work here. This wood is too oily for regular wood glue. Instead, I turned to some System 3 epoxy with the number 2 hardener, which is a 15-minute open time. And I glued up each one of these separately, so 1 batch per each, and I cleaned up my squeeze out with some acetone. I was mainly worried about inside of the body itself, where the front and the rear beds are. So with that done, I had to make my wedges. Now, the wedges are a multi-step process. The next step was to clean the rest of that sole off and then square these guys up. Now, once they were square, I went over to the table saw, and with some self-adhesive paper, I sanded the bottoms of the planes as well. And that got rid of all the kind of like scallops or ridges or whatever you want to call them from the jointer blades. It gave me a really nice, smooth surface. And then I moved on to getting my knurled knobs and my inserts into my wedges. So now I want to work on the mouth here. I'm just barely touching that top there. So what I want to do is to start removing material. And there we go, I'm right through, perfect. So one of the cool things about putting these knobs in is that with the inserts is that you apply pressure like a cap screw to the blade, and that tilts the wedge forward like this, applies really extreme pressure on the bottom of the blade, right where you want it to be to help prevent shattering, and it pushes the top of the blade down onto the plane bed itself, and that helps you get amazing shavings and pressure exactly where you need it. Just like putting paste wax on the plane of a iron body plane or a brass body or bronze body plane that is, this oily wood has the same type of effect, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty much where I am so far. Loving this project, already started editing it on the plane ride to and from Florida. So that's always nice to spend some time in the plane, and since most of the planes have electricity these days, you can do some editing. So that's pretty much it for this week. I do have a question of the week, which is, who's going to WIA and what's going on? I have a small little booth this year, about half the size I did last year, 5x10. I think that's really all I need. I'm traveling before and I'm traveling after the show, so I can't bring a ton of stuff with me either. But let me know who's going. Love to meet up. What's going on? I think I'm out of touch with what's going on group-wise. So if anybody's meeting or there's any groups, let me know. I'm interested. I want to hang out and meet you guys or hang out with you because I've already hung out with you before. I will be flying in Thursday night from a meeting. So Thursday night's pretty much killed because I get in late and I drive into the city or where the facility is after that. So Friday, Saturday, ready to rock and roll. Sunday, I'm not sure what's going on yet, and then I leave Sunday night. So that's my question of the week to you guys is, who's going, what's going on? Let me know in the comments below. So that's pretty much it, as I said, for this week. As always, please subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and hit that thumbs up button if you like this video. If you're watching this on Facebook, hit the like button, share in your timeline, and head over to the MM Wood Studio page and like us there as well. And as always, have a great week in the shop.